by Serco, because
Okay.
the office of the National Visa Center contains or has 5 members of the senior executive service reporting to Field McConnell's sister, Christine Marcy, on 911,
All right.
because she founded the senior executive service, and 500 employees of the British company Serco. The woman is a genius, an organizational genius.
Wait, you want to say that again?
This woman, right, she created the Department of Justice Asset Forfeiture Fund in 1984 and administered it with Eric Holder for a decade or so, right? She created, as far as I know, the database for the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children in 1984. So she has, to put it crudely, the raw material to exercise entrapment and extortion and blackmail of everyone in the United States government.
Actually, David, we're live now, and I captured that last bit. So hold on, and when I come back to intro you, you can go ahead and continue.
Okay, but you'll pop questions, won't it? So my voice doesn't dry out.
Oh, come on. All right, here we go. Reinventing government. Federal Bridge certification. Christine Marcy, shadow government. And
he told me, very interestingly, he had a sister by the name of Christine Marcy in Washington, who he thought was a senior bureaucrat, but he didn't know what she did. Well, I always conduct, I think, to the best of my ability, detailed research, and I'm particularly interested in the career structure of people who pop up in interesting places. So I dug into the background of Christine Marcy, and it turned out she's really quite an amazing and incredibly dangerous bureaucrat, or she was until she retired from government. Now, Field told me, apropos of 911.
Before we go forward, and as you heard for yourself in the own words of Hawkins, that it was he who created Christine Marcy, we have to go backwards. We have to go back to the famous article that was written on September the 12th, 2001, the one that Mr. McConnell keeps talking about. It's very important that we understand what this documentation is all about. So we're going to go together on this. And as you can see by the title itself, it states quite clearly, Northwest Pilot is not hard to fly once one is airborne. Now don't forget that Mr. McConnell turned around on December the 6th, 2006 when he met Hawkins, and according to Hawkins, told him his theories of 911, as Mr. Hawkins likes to keep calling it. So as we can see, this documentation is very important because there's a lot of information in this 2001 document. And as we go down, we can read this bit here. The Middle East is full of pilots, said McConnell. They have airline pilots out there fly similar equipment. There are all sorts of Middle Eastern people that have experience in those aeroplanes. But even if the terrorists weren't trained pilots, once the flights were actually in the air, it wouldn't have been difficult to steer them into the targets, he said. Does that sound completely different to what the whistleblower says? Well, let's go a bit more. So let's blow this up for people to see, because I had somebody say they couldn't see things, and it's a bit difficult to do sometimes. But here we go. There's plenty of people that would have some rudimentary understandings of how you would fly a 757 or 767 once it's airborne, he said. A potential terrorist seeking to hit a target would only need to get into the cockpit, he said, nor do targets be difficult to reach. I've flown up and down the East River and the Hudson River, and those two World Trade Center towers aren't hard to hit. There you have McConnell's own words. His own testimony at the day after 9/11. And yet, in 2006, everything changed. Well, we know why everything changed, because Mr. McConnell was losing his pilot's license due to a medical condition that he was forced to go on sick leave with. So Mr. McConnell was looking for a scam. Then he met the biggest con artist on the internet. The biggest liar on the internet with his whacked out, bizarre theories. We're going to go into some of them. We're going to talk about one, touch on one today, but we're going to go again a bit more into it because of its origins comes from Canada. not from America. So we're going to look at Hawkins and his awful terminologies a bit more, but let's talk about 1984. Because 1984 is where Hawkins tells even more lies. Now, he wasn't lied, he was misinformed. So he must have misinformed himself, which is a very important factor when we look at this and try to understand what is going on. So now let's look at the evidence and make our own decisions from that. So in 1984, apparently Christie Marcy created with Eric Holder the Asset Forfeiture Fund and also this National Centre of Exploited and Missing Children list. We're going to go look at those two parts, but there's something else that Hawkins accuses Christie Marcy of, and this article written on his site. This is Hawkins' Patreon site on January the 9th, 2019, so we cannot say he lied or was misinformed. This is his own words, his own documentation, so we know this is about what David Hawkins believes and has written. Let's go to part 4. We don't bother with Mr. Soames, we've got that already. But here we have Christie Marcy founded Conair in 1984, allegedly established DOJ Pride with FBI, USMS, OJP and all the other little bits and pieces. That's interesting, but here's another interesting part to what he's also accusing Christie Marcy of. According to Mcconnell, she began modifying Boeing aircraft in 1988 with patented intervention flight management system to prevent prisoner mutiny. Former Small Business Administration COO, she apparently used for Serco's mentor protege company Base One Technologies and Maxar to stage Conair 911. This is all what Hawkins has stated. This is not my words. These are the words written and pushed out by Hawkins. Remember, it was Hawkins that stated quite clearly. It was him that found Christie Marcy. It was him that exposed Christie Marcy. So it should be easy now to put Eric Holder with Christie Marcy in 1984. After all, don't forget who Eric Holder was. And it's important we look at that. So, here we have the records of Senate in 2009, which states the nomination of Eric Holder to prove that Mr. Eric Holder was nominated. There, Mr. Durbin, we know who Dick Durbin is, and Orrin Hatch of Utah to be the next Attorney General under Obama. And this was in 2009. Now, who is Eric Holder? Well, let's go to his bio on the Department of Justice, which is a legal documented evidence of facts. So here we have the story of Eric Holder. Let's go to this bit here. Upon graduating in 1976, he moved to Washington and joined the Department of Justice as part of the Attorney General's Honors Program. He was assigned to the newly formed Public Integrity Section and was tasked with investigating and prosecuting official corruption at the local and state federal levels. In 1988, Mr. Holder was nominated by President Ronald Reagan to become an Associate Judge of the Superior Court of the District of Columbia. He sat on the bench until 1993, so for 5 years. So from 1976 to 1988, Mr. Eric Holder was in the Public Integrity Section. Don't believe me? Here's another article here. 1997, Mr. Holder was named Clinton's of Attorney General, first African American. 1988, Mr. Holder was nominated by President Reagan. But here we go here. He attended Columbia College, majored in American history, and graduated in 1973. He graduated from Columbia Law School in 1976. He was assigned to the newly formed Public Integrity Section in 1976 and was tasked to investigate and prosecute official corruption at local, state, and federal levels. There you have it in absolute crystal clear that Mr. Holder was at the Public Integrity Section created from 1976 to 1988. So where was Christie Marcy? Now don't forget, this is evidence, this is documented, you can read it for yourself underneath. But let's go and find out where Christie Marcy was in this period of time. And this is going to be very, very interesting, and you'll find out why. So where was Christine Marcy in 1984? Well, here we have Department of the Interior and Related Agencies appropriation for fiscal year 1984. Tuesday, April 19th, 1983. U.S. Senate Subcommittee of Committee of Appropriations, Washington, D.C. So we know this is in Washington, D.C. We know it's the Senate, and it's in 1983. Department of the Interior Fish and Wildlife Service. Statement by Robert A. Jensen, Director. And here we have Christine Marcy, Deputy Director, Office of Budget in the Wildlife and Fisheries Department. That's where she was in 1983 and 1984. Now, let's go to here. Thursday, March 17th, 1983, Office of the Solicitor, Witnesses. This again was in the Senate. Christine Marcy, Deputy Director, Office of Budget. Now, this one is particular I want you to pay attention to because you'll see that Christine Marcy has altercations with her Mr. Yates here. How does a woman get into this crowd of males? Miss Marcy, very difficult. Mr. Yates, very difficult. Oh, you are Joe Gorell's deputy. In other words, there's still this male-dominated environment. And then all of a sudden they've got a woman there. And this guy, Mr. Yates, is basically saying he wants Joe Gorell there. It's all surreptitious. You can hear that. So this is why we know it's a man's world in the 70s. And here we haven't seen you before, Miss Marcy. Miss Marcy, I generally cover the Senate side. Mr. Yates, oh, you are sent here for punishment. Again, Mr. Yates is having a dig at her. But it gets more interesting because here you're going to see even more evidence because written in here is the biography of Christine Marcy. And it's very important. We're going to read this now together. Christine Marcy, Deputy Director of Budget Department of the Interior. She's a native of Tucson, Arizona. She holds a Bachelor of Arts degree from the University of Hawaii, a Master of Science in Foreign Service from Georgetown University, and a Juris Doctor degree from George Washington University Law School. She is a member of the District of Columbia Bar. She is a charter member of the Senior Executive Service, and from 1980 to May 1982, she served as Deputy Assistant Secretary for the Department of Education. Prior to that assignment, she served an 18-month stint as an Assistant Director for Human Resources for Veterans and Labour Programs at the Office of Personnel Management. From September 1977 to January 1980, she was Deputy Executive Director of the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. She entered federal service in 1968 as a research assistant with the Office of Economic Opportunity, advancing successfully to management intern and program analyst. In 1972, she joined the Cost of Living Council's Price and Commission, and the following year became a budget examiner for the Office of Management and Budget. He served in that capacity for 4 years until joining the Federal Energy Administration in 1977, transferring to FERC later that year. Here we have conclusive evidence of Christine Marcy's prior employment up until 1984. Bar, she's a member of the Bar. She's also was joined in 1968 at the Office of Economic Opportunity, and yes, that is where Donald Rumsfeld run, and also Carlucci, but they were later on. And don't forget that Christine Marcy in 1972 joined the Cost of Living Council, as she was also on a management internment program. So she had worked her way up from the very bottom, and we can see this because the documentation is there. So, here is clear-cut evidence for you to read yourselves. And here we have 1985, Department of the Interior Performance Review Board appointments. Performance Review Board, Department Review Board, and here Office of the Secretary of the Review Board people, and there we have Christine Marcy. She's not in the Department of Justice. So how is it she created the Asset Forfeiture Fund? Here again in 1985, budget, interior thing, there you have Christine Marcy, Office of Budget Department of the Interior. We have where she was. There you have the Wildlife and Fisheries Department. So now we need to find where Hawkins' evidence is of what he's been stating. The asset of forfeiture, the prisoner transportation, and of course the National Centre for Exploited and Missing Children database. How did she do all this in 1984 when now we know where she was and we know where Eric Holder was? This gets to the point where we now prove the fact that Hawkins made all of this up. It's all make-believe, and we're going to prove that even further. To add hilarity to this story, now let's look at the Comprehensive Forfeiture Act of 1984 and see exactly who actually sponsored this. Well, it's our good friend Senator Biden, Joseph R. Jr. Joe Biden was the person responsible behind the Comprehensive Asset and Forfeiture Fund, which was done by Congress. So it's simple to debunk here. Measures passed by the Senate amended. So in other words, it had a couple of sittings before it was actually passed. So it had nothing to do with Eric Holder or Christie Marcy and everything to do with Congress. But here we go. Comprehensive Forfeiture Act of 1984 amends the Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organisation Statute RICO to specify property subject to forfeiture of racketeering activity includes all proceeds obtained directly or indirectly from racketeering activity, and 2, real and tangible and intangible personal property. In other words, this was done by Congress. It has to be passed because it's a law, it's a regulation. It doesn't by two bureaucrats all of a sudden create the Asset and Forfeiture Fund. One who was actually in the where we've already proven where Eric Holder is, and we've proven where Christie Marcy was, and neither of them was here. Here we have the annual reports, a couple of more articles for you to look at for yourselves to go through to understand how this lie, this misinformation created by Hawkins. But this is the one that makes my blood boil the most. This one really gets to me. The missing exploited children. This nonsense where they keep going on about snuff films and the children's crusade and everything else to play on your emotions, to take money from people by pushing out lies. Now this one really gets my goat up more than anything else. The accusation that Christie Marcy created this database for missing and exploited children. When actually when you start reading about this, you'll understand this, and I'm going to go through it all, is that it was the child's name was Adam Walsh. It is a very horrific and sad story. Here we have the New York Times one. Oh, no, I didn't want to do that. Sorry, hang on. Let's go back to here. The photos are everywhere, gap-toothed faces with awkward, squinty grins, school portraits of broadly beaming adolescents. So this talks about the sad murder of Adam Walsh in 1982. Hang on a minute, I shall get to that in a second. Oh yes, the US is still dealing with the murder of Adam Walsh. And we'll go down on this one quite easily, and we'll explain a bit more of it for you. So here we have the picture of Adam Walsh, a cute young 6-year-old, and he was murdered, in 1981, I got the year out, 1981. On July 27, 1981, 6-year-old Adam Walsh went to see his in Hollywood, Florida Mall with his mother. As she browsed, he played video games a few hours when things. 16 days after he went missing, on August 10th, 1981, precisely 35 years ago, Wednesday, 2 fishermen found Adam's, I hate to say this, severed head floating in the Mcconnell, Florida Turnpike. The tragedy came just 2 years after another 6-year-old, Etan Pazza. So you can see there's a thing here, and they've done about all for threatened children rhetoric, it's about child victims. This is a really tragic story, and it's heartbreaking to read this. I hate having to do this sort of things. But I'm now going to go to this bit here, and it's very important you listen to what I'm saying here now. Adam's parents started the Adam Walsh Outreach Centre for Missing Children just 4 days after their son's funeral. They lobbied for the Missing Children's Act, which was enabled in 1982, required entry of missing children's data into the FBI's National Crime Information Centre database. Did you hear that? We'll get back to that in a minute. In 1984, John Walsh would co-found the federally nationally funded National Centre for Missing and Exploited Children, and 4 years later he started hosting America's Most Wanted. In 1994, big box retailers like Walmart began implementing Code Adam. The measure mobilises all store clerks when a child is reported missing, and in 2006, George W. Bush signed the Adam Walsh Child Protection and Safety Act of 2006, which expanded the National Sex Offender Registry and created a National Child Abuse Registry. That there is how it all came about. Here we have the Adam Walsh murder, John and Reeve Walsh. And this here is the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library. And it talks about his remarks at the White House ceremony marking the opening of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And this is talking about June 13th, 1984. In fact, there is an actual video for this. If you go to YouTube, and I'll put the link below, you can watch for yourself. It's only 15 minutes long, and I highly recommend you do, because you will not see Christie and Marcy in there, and you won't see Eric Holder in there. What you'll see is Ronald Reagan with the people that created the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Now let's go back to what I wanted to talk about, where the fact of the database is. The database is here. The missing children data into the FBI's National and Crime Information Center database, NCIC, in 1984. Nothing to do with Christine Marcy. So here we have the US Marshal Service. Now I want to spend a whole episode on this. So the next episode we will talk about JPATS. But for your information, you can see that it was created in 1995, not 1984. But I will go on about the prisoner transportation system, and we are going to talk about the history of it. What I want to say, as a quote unquote B-rated bad guy researcher, is if I can find all this information, which I've been proving all the way along, I've exposed Hawkins lies after lies after lies with evidence, and I drop the evidence for people to go and read for themselves, to make their own evaluation. Hawkins doesn't do anything apart from smear and attack the people that expose his lies. Now Hawkins is a liar. He is just as bad as Mcconnell, if not worse. And don't forget, McConnell's sitting in a prison. I also think Hawkins should be sitting in a prison as well, or facing charges against everybody he is accused of crimes with no evidence apart from his fantasies that he creates. And it is time that Hawkins started to produce his evidence. Instead of turning around and accusing people of being third-rate researchers, these third-rate researchers like myself have exposed one after another of his misinformation. And now it's time for Hawkins to pay the piper and give us his actual documented evidence.